Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. There's a quiet struggle that a lot of people carry. They're trying to heal, trying to move forward, but often feel like nothing is really changing. And sometimes it's not because they are not trying hard enough, it's because the system meant to help them isn't working the way it should. Today's guest is someone working to change that. Asleydawn Sheppard is a licensed therapist, trauma specialist, and co-founder of Get Out of Your Head Therapy and Get Into Your Head training. With over a decade of experience, she specializes in complex trauma and is deeply focused on making mental health care more effective, accessible, and honest. Her work challenges the current mental health paradigm and asks a powerful question. What does real healing actually look like? Asleydawn, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so yeah, we're gonna be diving into your 20s a little bit. Although you look like you're in your 20s, right? So all right, so take us back to your 20s. What did your life look like at that time, especially balancing work, finance, and your career path?
Yes. So, Sekani, it's so funny to hear you say that because when you're in your 20s, you don't think that you're fit enough, pretty enough, thin enough. You just find everything wrong with yourself. And then you make it to your 40s if you're lucky. And you look back and you're like, why was I not more grateful? I
Exactly.
want everyone to hear that first is that love yourself right now and don't be 42 like me and look back and think, I should have just been nicer to myself when I was 20 something. Um, but in your 20s, so your brain isn't even fully developed, And so we're expected to do these very adult things. And most of us have no idea what we're doing. And maybe some of us were lucky enough to grow up in families that prepared us for those things, but a lot of us weren't. And so I think that it's totally normal to be fumbling through your 20s. I was really fumbling in my 20s. I went to college, I went to university, and I was actually assaulted my freshman year of college. And so I dropped out of college, took a semester off, worked for minimum wage, was highly motivated to not keep working for minimum wage, and went back to college. And I didn't get help for that issue for a decade. And so all through my 20s, I feel like I was wreaking havoc because I was feeling internal havoc. And so I finished university, I got a job, and I graduated right around the time that we were beginning to feel the effect of the Great Recession in the US, which was a really bad time. And I graduated with a journalism degree, and the entire field of journalism was changing. So, what I had gone to school for, I couldn't actually find a job for. So, I have this university degree, and for my entire 20s, I worked 2 to 3 jobs. I worked a full time job, and then I worked a job in the evening and on the weekends. And so, I feel like if you were to describe my 20s, it was just like strugglebus.com. And um, just feeling capable, feeling like I had all this potential, all this education, but not really feeling like it could go anywhere. And also in my 20s is when I went back and pivoted and went to graduate school. So that's kind of my 20s in a nutshell.
Hey. All right, so I don't know. I would say that's a tough one. That is something to be proud of. Right? Look at where you are today. I mean, you would have probably given up. Not to say, have the willpower that you had, right? So that is something worth emulating, actually. So thank you. All right. So,
Yes.
Ashley, you shared that you were working multiple jobs and struggling financially. So how did that period shape your perspective on, mental health and access to care?
Yeah. So for many years in my adult life, I actually haven't had insurance. And I don't know do you guys have insurance in Nigeria or is everything
Yeah,
out of
we do.
pocket? You have insurance
We
too?
do,
Okay.
yes, or something.
So here in the US, you typically get it with a job. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to pay for it out of pocket. But you can also have jobs that don't provide insurance or benefits. And I had a lot of jobs like that. So actually, there were many years in my adult life that I didn't have insurance. And so to me, if someone is paying for insurance or having that deducted from their paycheck, they deserve to be able to use it. But a lot of providers don't want to take insurance because it doesn't pay as well as they think they should be being paid. And so I think my experience of working really hard to barely make ends meet and never feeling like I had enough money to actually take care of myself, but also understanding what it feels like to not have health insurance sometimes, that was a huge motivator to me to try to make healthcare and mental health care more accessible to people. Because basically, if we're saying you can have therapy if you can pay a couple $100 an hour, or you can have therapy if you have insurance, we're automatically othering an entire demographic of people. And we're basically saying to them, you're not worthy of excellent care. Or we're saying to them, you can go to that little clinic down the road because that's what you deserve. And that's terrible. It's so hard to ask for help and it's so hard to find the right fit that I believe every single person, regardless of their income level, regardless of their insurance status, deserves excellence. And so I'm trying to do that in my very small way.
Wow, I love what you're doing, honestly. I think you're doing an amazing job, right? You're trying to show love to people. And I wish everybody had the mindset that you have now. I think the world will actually be a better place, right? Because everybody deserves the right amount of care, right? Not just some certain people. Everyone deserves love and deserve care. So yes, you're doing
Yes.
amazing. Thank you so much, Ashley, for that one. And yeah,
Thank you.
right. Okay, so when you were young, I believe you made some mistakes, right? Of which we make mistakes now that we are young, right? So I mean, like, what early mistakes did you make, and what lessons did you learn early in your career?
Yeah. So I'm going to say to mistakes that I prefer the term learning opportunity. And let me tell you why. So if we say, oh, I made a mistake, what immediately floods us is shame and maybe some guilt, right? And guilt is good. Guilt is that thing that is kind of that reminder that tells us, hey, learn from that, don't do it again. Shame is not helpful. It's like carrying around a backpack of rocks. Why would you do that? And so I think I'm really big into language is reality, and the way that we talk about stuff really matters. And so I want people to think of that when I misstep, when I don't make a decision that I'm proud of, when I don't do something that I would like to have shown in the light, how can I look at that as a learning opportunity so that I can step differently next time? And so on that note, I've made so many learning opportunities slash mistakes that I can't even count all of them. But what I really think I have the most sadness for as my 20 something self is I have sadness for not valuing people more and um, seeing how my actions were impacting them and understanding how my hurt was causing me to hurt them. You know, hurt people often hurt people. And so because I was hurting, I was selfish or I was just trying to get my needs met. And I wasn't looking at how my actions were really affecting other people. And if I could run into any of those people today, they would get the most sincere apology. But also, I think just something that I want every 20-year-old to hear is that life doesn't get easier. I think we're kind of sold this lie that when I get a job, when I get that good job, when I get a house, when I find the right person, when I have the kids, when I have the perfect looking living room, when I have my dream kitchen, when I have the car that works all the time, I'm going to be happy. Everything's going to be good. But the thing is, that goes against a fundamental law of physics, which is that everything becomes more disordered and more chaotic over time. And why does that happen as we age? Well, if you think about it, we have more relationships. We have more people that we love. And when we have more relationships and we have more people we love, we're going to experience more loss, or we're going to experience more disappointment, or we're going to have the big fancy house and then we're going to have a bunch of problems with it and we're going to have to take care of it, or we're going to have the more expensive car and it's going to cost more to service it, right? Or you're going to have this beautiful family and now you have all these other needs and all of these other wants that you have to attend to besides your own. And so I think that there's a lot of comfort in accepting early on and young life gets more complicated, and that's a reality. You can't go against a fundamental law of physics. But if you can accept that, then nothing drives you crazy, or nothing disables you, because you're like, oh, yeah, Asleydawn told me 10 years ago, life was going to be so much harder when I'm 40. And so I'm just going to ride that wave now. And I wish I had known that, because I think I spent a lot of my 30s thinking, if I make it to the next thing, life is gonna be easier. And so then I think that's how we get on that hamster wheel of constantly striving, but nothing ever being enough. I'm not sure if you can relate to that. So that's a really big lesson I learned. I have like so many, I could talk for 5 hours on lessons, but does that give you some insight?
Yes, it does, definitely. First one is not to call them mistakes, right? They are life lessons, right?
Mhm.
Not mistakes, not they
Mhm.
are learning experience. Yeah, like you said, learning experience and not mistakes. Because
Yeah.
mistakes can be associated with shame. But everybody is in a learning journey, because life,
Mhm.
life learning is lifelong, right? So we are all learning and we are bound to make learning experiences, different kind of experiences. So we shouldn't call them mistakes. That's one thing I learned. And then the second one is it gets tougher, right? Life gets tougher when you have
Mhm.
kids and you get married, you get the bigger car, the bigger house, the bigger the things, the bigger the problems, right? So we need to understand that and just find joy in what you do now. Just be happy now, and you grow being happy no matter what you have now. Just be happy, because your happiness grows over time. But if you're like sad now and saying, oh, when I grow it becomes better, I'll get the happiness I deserve later in life, you probably might not get it, because life gets tougher. Right? So yeah, I learned this one. Thank you so much, Ashley.
You're welcome.
I love it. And yeah, so thank you. And I believe, right, that you still have a whole lot of lessons. So yeah, I believe you have a lot to share with us, and also some form of advice to give to young adults. Right. So what advice, apart from what I've learned already, what advice would you love to give to young adults who are probably trying to figure life out?
Whoa, that's a lot of pressure, Sekani. Let me think. Kind of going along with what we were just talking about, I think lesson number one is contentment is a choice. It's so every day it's waking up saying, this is enough. I am enough. What I'm doing is enough. But that doesn't mean apathy, right? You can still strive, you can still have dreams, you can still have goals. But when you make that choice for contentment every day, then you're living in the presence of your life, even if it's not everything that you want it to be, right? And it won't. I mean, it won't ever be everything you want it to be. That's just not life. But I think another lesson that I think is really important is make friends. We're more connected than we've ever been to people. I mean, I'm talking to you thousands of miles, kilometers away. There's an entire ocean between us. It would take me hours to fly to you, and you and I are having a conversation. And we feel, I think, more connected than ever because we have access to people, but we don't really have depth or vulnerability. We don't wrestle through hard things with people. Some of us might, but I think a lot of us are really isolated. And I always say as a therapist, would I have a job if every single person on this planet had 2 to 3 friends that could go to hell and back with them? And I don't think I would have a job. And I would love to see that day. I would voluntarily resign from my job if I could see that day. But if you think about it, having a friend and having friends is what gives you joy. It's what carries through life. It's what gives you a different perspective. It's the thing that makes life worth living. I have a Ugandan friend that I was telling you I went to visit, and it's such a different culture in Uganda than in the US. It's very collectivistic, whereas in the US, it's very individualistic. And he said, yes, that's our purpose. It's to live for others. And I thought to myself as an American, that is not my purpose. But then I'm living for me. But then I sat back and I thought about that and I thought, you know what? Everything that gives me meaning, everything that makes me happy is me when I'm in service to others or doing something for others. And so he's right. Like, we need to live for each other. We need to live for ourselves too. But that human connection, we weren't meant to live on islands. Like, human connection is the thing that's going to carry you through anything you don't know how to navigate.
Human connection. Right? Wow. Okay, so we spoke about contentment, right? And also, I mean, I've learned so much already. I feel like you were speaking directly to my soul, right? And you said make a lot of friends, have friends, right? Connect with people. There's love out there. It just, having friends come with joy. And then like you said, your friend told you, right? Live for others. And I think I resonate with that statement, live for others, right? It's not to say you're doing people pleasing. It's to just, love people. I think the key word there is love, right? Live for others and care for others. Exactly. Because if you care for others, people will care for you some way, the whole love comes back to you. So you're still doing yourself a favor, right? So yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
thank
even on that, honey, that's what you're doing. I mean, this podcast to me, I'm sure you're getting fulfillment out of it and you enjoy it. But at the end of the day, you're showing up every day. So all these people can hear this stuff. And so in a way, you're doing that. You're living for others while also living for yourself.
you. Talking about my podcast, right? There's something I love. There's a difference between enjoy and love. I would say mine is love. I love to talk to people. I love to make friends with new people. It just gives me so much joy. Like, yeah, I love doing this. It's my passion. So I think I'll start with me. All right, Ashley. So yeah, I want us to do a deep dive into what you're doing now. Right? So you've worked across so many therapeutic models. So what makes trauma model therapy different from traditional approach?
Yeah. So that is so hard to answer in a couple sentences, but I'm going to try because this is a very important thing to learn how to communicate clearly. So, trauma model therapy basically says all the things that you're doing, all the symptoms that you're experiencing, all the maladaptive ways that you're coping, maybe through addiction or um, bad relationships or not making great decisions, right? All of the things that you're struggling with were your attempt to adapt to something that no human could have properly experienced or no human should have ever gone through. And so it's this very compassion, empathy based model that looks at people as trying their best to make it through life and having a really hard time doing that and saying what happened to you should have never happened to you and how you're responding to it. Maybe it's not a great way what you're doing right now, but it makes sense why you tried to adapt. We all have this beautiful adaptation system within us. And it's that saying, you don't know what you don't know till you know it. And so, when you're a child and you've walked a really hard road, or when you're a teenager or a young adult and you've walked a really hard road and you don't have people around you that you can trust to show you the way, you just do the best you can. And a lot of us, we don't do a great job. We try, but we don't do a great job. And so trauma model therapy is very focused on, okay, let's look at what happened to you, but then how do we change those situations? How do we move forward?
Please, can I get a minute? Just 1 minute, please. I would come. All right, I am so sorry to cut you
You're
short.
okay.
I was hearing some of noise outside. I needed to confirm what was going on. Right. I'm sorry, I'm so nosy.
You're good. You're good.
Right. So yeah, I hope okay, yeah, I did cut you short, but I hope you could remember what we were saying.
Yeah. So what do I need to repeat any of that? Or are we good?
Oh no, we could continue. I'll find a way to edit them.
Wonderful.
All right, so thank you so much, Ashley. And yeah, you made us know your trauma model therapy, and you made us understand that, trauma is caused by some things that people shouldn't have to go through, right? And then they find a way to adapt to that trauma, right? Which made you to create your own model, right? Your trauma model therapy. And then, yeah, there are different approaches to trauma healing, right? Which is like the traditional approaches, but yours is like the trauma model therapy, of which I still need to really understand exactly how how it's done or how you do yours, right? So I still need to understand. I don't think I fully understand that.
Yeah. So trauma model therapy was actually created by a psychiatrist, a Canadian American psychiatrist named Dr. Colin Ross. And he was going through psychiatry during a time that a lot of changes were happening in mental health care in the US and the world, our understanding of disorders and diagnoses. And he was kind of coming through a time in psychiatry and psychological history where people were being blamed and named for these things that they had, and something was wrong with them, and we need to throw medication at them. And he's just naturally a very curious, very chill guy. And so I can just imagine him, in his 20s or 30s, kind of leaning back and thinking, something just isn't right here. What is missing? And I think that then he spent the next 4 decades of his career figuring out, okay, what is missing? And so in trauma model therapy, there's a ton of emphasis on clinical curiosity. So you're looking at not the problem that's coming into the room, but you're looking at what the problem, but we call it the problem is not the problem. So someone might come in with depression or anxiety or sleep issues, and that's a problem. We need to address that problem. But trauma model therapy is going to say, what's the problem behind that problem? What are all the things that you're anxious about? What are all the things that you're depressed about? What are all the things that are keeping you up at night? Those are the things we need to address. But then it also kind of gives attention to how when we, like I said earlier, hurting people hurt people, right? So we can be a victim and hopefully we'll make it to the other side of that and heal and become a survivor. But a lot of times when we're a victim, we end up becoming a perpetrator. Not necessarily a perpetrator committing some sort of act that would send you to prison, but like I said, hurting people hurt people. So if I'm hurting as a victim and then I go hurt somebody, I've just become a perpetrator. And then I'll see somebody hurting and I want to run over there and be a rescuer and take them out of that bad thing. And so trauma model therapy also gives a lot of attention to what we call the victim, rescuer, perpetrator triangle. and how that can exist in our relationships, but also how it can exist in us, and how in healing, we kind of break those maladaptive cycles so that we can have better a better experience inside, but also so we can have a better experience in our relationships and our interactions with the world. Um, and we say it's time to heal for real, right? So you shouldn't be in therapy for 20 years. You should get really good help, make it to the other side, and then thrive as a human. That's the goal.
Right. So I know you mentioned some very big words, right? That I might not know. Okay, but what stood out for me was trauma model therapy tackles the problem causing the problem, right? It's the problem behind the problem. And I think that is, addressing the root cause of a problem. Most people just address the symptoms or the signs, but they never think of what is causing these things. So you're actually addressing the root cause, and this can help the person become better, right? And then you also talk about, victims being perpetrators, even though it's not intentional, right? But like you said, hurting people hurt people. So you might have unknowingly made someone a victim, right, from your own hurt. And then the person is now hurt too. And you might not even know it. And then, yeah, you try to, just the needed therapy, right? You give them the needed therapy and make them understand that if you're like this, there are potential that you could hurt someone. And yes, this is actually addressing the root cause of problems, right? Because I feel like this isn't addressed enough, right? People don't know about this. And I like that you're making people know about this. And it's a good model, I would say. Good model, right?
Thank you. I think of like a root or like a weed. If you see a weed, you can go just cut it. But if you didn't get the root, the weed comes back, right? If you want to get the weed out, I'm a gardener, if you can't tell, you go dig and you get that entire root system out, and then that weed doesn't come back. And I think that a lot of times either people don't have the time or money to spend on really good, get into it therapy. But also, some therapists don't have the clinical bravery to go dive into the deep end with people. And so we're trying to help people, but we're also trying to empower therapists to be really brave in the clinical room and go dive into the deep end with people so that they can heal.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Ashley. This has been amazing, right? Conversations like this are always very powerful and important, especially for young adults who are trying to probably heal from some of the mental health issues, right? So yeah, this brings me to this particular question, right? About healing system and purpose. So first of all, I need to know what your purpose is, right? So what changes do you hope to see in the future of mental health care?
Whew, again, Sekani. Man, how much time you got? So what I really want to see change in mental health care is that we are not just getting someone stabilized and then sending them out the door. We're not just taking people's money and helping them a little bit and then not really getting them to a place where they no longer need us. Being a therapist is such a weird thing because you have to make money helping people, which is kind of weird, right? But I always say when people are paying me to help them, they're paying me to keep being able to show up. And so if I can look at it that way, it doesn't feel quite as strange. But the whole purpose of being a good therapist is to put yourself out of a job. Because if you put yourself out of a job, the person has healed. But that also is kind of exhausting because you heal somebody and then you have to go back and you have to market and you have to find a new client and all this stuff. So I can understand why some therapists would want to keep somebody on their caseload for a really long time. And there are instances and situations where people really do need therapy for years, and that's not inappropriate. But what I think is really important for people or for mental health care in general is that we are we have a very clear idea of what we're trying to do with that person. That person really understands and agrees with the treatment plan, right? If I have cancer and I go to an oncologist, he's going to tell me what kind of cancer I have and what I need to do to treat the cancer so that I can hopefully live another 10, 15 years. But in therapy, we don't always tell people, this is what I think you have. This is what I think you need for treatment. This is how long it's going to take. These are the goals that I think are important. What do you think? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that's a good approach? So helping make people more active in their treatment helps them see the light at the end of the tunnel and want to keep showing up and engaging in it. But also measuring. How do we know if something's working if we're not measuring it? And so if you're in therapy and you're not periodically being assessed by your therapist to see are things getting better? Are things lessening that were really problematic? If we're not measuring it, how do we actually know that we're doing a good job? And so that's what I want to see change in mental health care. I want to see affordability, accessibility, and then I want to see efficiency in terms of we're actually getting people to the other side, but we're not doing efficiency at the cost of really excellent, targeted, deep mental health care. And then as part of that, we're measuring it, making sure we're doing a good job, and we're actually getting people to buy into the process.
Okay, that's an amazing one, right? So affordability, accessibility, then efficiency, of which the efficiency is measured, right? So yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds amazing. And moving forward, right? I wish you the best of luck. And I know you have it, right? You've got everything you need. So yeah, I wish you the best of luck. And I know you're gonna I don't want to use the word try because it's almost associated with struggling, but I know you're gonna rule. Yes, rule is the word. You make it big. All right. So yes, can you tell me, right, what are you currently working on or building right now that is exciting for you?
Yeah, so I am still working on building trauma model therapy out so that we can train clinicians on how to do it. And then we can make people aware of how to find a trauma model therapy therapist. But as part of that, I am currently doing another startup because I love, working long hours for no pay. That's like my favorite thing in the world. So we created a sister company called Get Into Your Head Training, which is a training company for professionals in the mental health space to learn how to do meaningful, good work. But the reason why I decided to do that was because there are so many therapists all over the world doing absolutely incredible stuff in the clinical room every day. And we never hear about it because they're too busy helping people. And then they're too tired at the end of the day to talk about it or try to promote it or try to teach it or try to go to a conference and talk about it. And if you haven't figured it out already, I'm definitely for the democratization of healthcare, the democratization of knowledge. And I think right now, most of the voices that we hear from are the people at the top, the researchers, the heads of departments, the people the 1%. And I want a lot of other clinicians to hear from that everyday clinician. And so, as part of that, my mission is to just amplify the everyday clinical voice. And so, I'm working with clinicians to help them take something that they're really good at and they love, turn it into a training, and then make that available to other mental health clinicians.
Hey, wow. All right. So what I can say is I wish you the best, right? I wish you very best. And I also do believe in you. Right? And I know you're doing amazing. You're doing a very good job. And conversations like this are powerful. They're eye-opening and they are very much needed for young adults. Exactly. So yeah, before we go, I want you to answer this one final question for me, right? Because my podcast centers around young adults trying to fix their life. So for someone in their 20s who feels stuck, overwhelmed, or they feel like they're not making progress in their life or mental health, what is your most honest advice to them?
Keep walking. And let me tell you why. What separates a successful person from an unsuccessful person, or a person who just sits down and says, I give up, life sucks, is that they keep walking. They didn't give up. And there are so many moments in life where it doesn't seem like it's worth it. It doesn't seem like there's any point to anything. And it just seems like life is beating you down from every direction. It's like it's raining, the wind's blowing, the earth is shaking, and something is on fire all at the same time. And if you just keep walking, you're going to make it past that storm. You're going to make it past that cloudy day. You're going to make it past the hard. And then you're going to look back and you're going to think, I did that. I kept walking. And then guess what? The next time something hard happens, what are you going to know about yourself? You're going to know that you're capable of doing hard things. And you're going to tell yourself, this is going to suck. I'm going to hate every second of this, but I'm going to keep walking. And I often think about how many amazing people we'll never hear from, that we'll never know of, because they gave up. And that's literally, it's not like this magnificent thing that you have to do. You don't have to have this magical key. You just have to keep showing up for yourself every day.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Ashley. This has been amazing. And I must say, it felt like you spoke to me directly, right? Okay. And I hope my listeners are definitely gonna, hear this and to make a shift in their lives. All right. Thank you so much, Ashley. This has been amazing. And it brings me to the final segment of my podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment. Okay. All right. So starting now, healing or coping?
Healing.
Okay. Healing. Okay. Awareness or action?
Action.
Okay. Depth or speed?
Depth.
Okay. What is one word for trauma?
Hardship.
And finally, one habit that supports mental health.
Love.
Wow, you did amazing.
Oh my gosh, that was so nerve-wracking.
That's the best one yet, right? You did amazing. Okay. All right, Ashley. So where can listeners get to, learn more about your work and, your platform, right?
Yeah. So depending on what kind of listener, whether it's a clinician or not. So if people want help, traumamodeltherapy.com will be going live in a few weeks and people can get help there. And if people are helpers or they're clinicians listening, they can go to Get Into Your Head Training or traumamodeltherapy.com. And then I'm also on Instagram under my name, Asleydawn Sheppard.
Okay. All right. For Instagram, I will be following you ASAP, right? All right. Thank you, Ashley. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparks something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Thank you, Ashley. Do have a wonderful day. This was
Thank you, Sekani. Take care.
Take care. Bye.